For number 20, I wanted to do something good. I had planned on a different game, but ran out of time due to me getting lost all the time. Don't worry, that one will be released in a few weeks or so. So in the meantime, I attempted a different game. Again, due to time constraints, no can do. So, they say third time's a charm, and for simplicity, I picked a game I owned for quite a while and knew I could finish quickly. That game is obviously the NES port of Double Dragon. Granted, I never was able to play the arcade game, but I hear it was superior to the NES version. However, I wasn't fretting over it because, in my opinion, this game was a pretty good beat-em-up. The story is as follows. You play as Billy Lee. He looks out his window one day to see a gang of thugs punch his girlfriend Marion in the gut and kidnap her. They obviously don't know that Billy knows a bit about fighting. The hero of the game sets out to rescue her in her typical boy gets girl back scenario. So you go through 4 missions of punching and kicking glory to rescue the girl you love. Aw, how touching. First off, the music is classic. It's catchy, it's adrenaline pumping, and the theme just rocks. It's a shame that when you go to the menu, it just stops. Here's one of the odd parts of the game. Yeah, I'm not even past the title screen and I got a gripe already. Most games, you press start to move to the menu screen. Not this one. You press select. Now, I can understand why you use select to move the cursor between the 4 different play options. But why select to get to the menu? Those crazy developers probably just want to test us to see if we were worthy enough to play their game by throwing a puzzle at us right at the title screen. I guess I passed. Anyway, there's 2 actual play modes, 2 versions of each. The 2 versions are simply 1 or 2 players. Unfortunately, unlike the arcade game, the game isn't co-op. Both players alternate turns playing as Billy. So what happens to his twin brother, Jimmy? Oddly enough, he's apparently behind the kidnapping, because he's the final boss. Before I get ahead of myself, the second mode is a simple 1 versus 1 match. There's 6 characters you can choose from, but there's a small catch. You fight yourself. If you choose Billy, you fight Billy. It's not the greatest fighting mode out there, but it's fun if you have someone to fight against. And it's a good way to kill a bit of time. If you fight against the computer, be forewarned, they get a small health handicap. Anyway, the real meat of the game is in the regular game mode. As I said, you go through 4 missions, otherwise known as levels, beating the crap out of anyone that gets in your way. The controls are simple enough too. A punches, B kicks. Press them together, and you jump. The directions move you in whichever way you push them. Simple enough. You do get access to more attacks as well as you play it. See that little number in the bottom left corner of the screen next to the hearts? Those hearts aren't your life. Instead, they're basically your skill level. Almost every attack in the game will net you experience points, which is what that number is. Once that number reaches 1000, you gain a level. There's a total of 7 skill levels, and once you obtain the 7th heart, that experience gauge will remain at 0. It's easy enough to level quickly if you just keep punching your enemies, especially in the first few stages. The points will rack up because every punch nets you 20 experience points. You start off with some simple stuff, like jump kicks and uppercuts. Eventually, you'll be able to grab the enemy's hair and introduce your knee to their face, and also a pretty nasty jumping roundhouse kick. You'll also be able to sit on the enemy and bitch slap the opponent to oblivion. What? Those are supposed to be punches? Really? Well, it sure doesn't look like it to me. Along with your bare hands, you also get access to a limited selection of weapons. These range from bats, knives, whips, and dynamite. You can also pick up crates and boulders to chuck at the approaching thugs, but they actually do minimal damage. Also, any weapon on the screen disappears when the current group of enemies is cleared. So this must be where Streets of Rage got that idea from. Damn you, Double Dragon. The game starts off as your basic fighting game, but about halfway through the 3rd stage, you'll notice that they start putting in some crappy 2D platforming. From what I read, these sections weren't in the arcade game and were added into the NES port. Basically, you enter a cavern when fighting 2 Obobos, and have to carefully dodge falling stalactites. Or is it stalagmites? I can't remember, but honestly, I don't really give a shit. All I know is that they're annoying because the damage will add up quickly. Once you pass that portion, you move to 3 moving platforms, which you must carefully navigate. Fail, and you fall, having to fight a few more enemies. You'll then have to repeat the dropping stalag things. But wait, you fell down here. There's no climbing. So how the hell do you end up back here? What kind of cavern is this? Anyway, there's a few sections in the second half of the game that repeat this way. In fact, if you've never played the game before, you may not know that you need to go through this wall here to enter the cavern. You can keep moving right, and if so, you loop through the stage again. Doing this will probably make the timer run out, voiding one of your lives. There's only 3 lives that you get, and there's no extra ones, so you gotta be careful. The 4th stage is even more frustrating because of what's found in the very beginning of the stage. These fucking bricks. This wouldn't be so bad if there was a pattern, but of course not. What makes it worse is that there's 2 sets here, and even worse, 4 hits from these bricks will kill you. I knocked out all my lives several times on this section alone. There's different strategies online on how to deal with these, but I never found a good, foolproof method. So finally I just ran straight through, and only got hit a few times. I wouldn't suggest doing this method, but hey, it works. And as long as you can get to the next doorway, you'll be fine. Because as soon as you enter a new section, your life is replenished. After that, you climb up a rock wall and get to yet another platforming section. This one is annoying because enemies will be actively attacking you. Not to mention the jumping controls can be pretty stiff, so timing is everything. Miss, and you risk the chance of falling into the water, losing a life. If you edge out too far on a platform with a drop, you'll just fall off and land painfully. I don't understand the whole purpose of the platforming sections of the game. It would have been perfectly fine without them and by staying with the action. The last part of the game has you defeating at least 2 of each variety of thug before introducing you to Willie. He was the final boss in the arcade game, and he's toting a nasty machine gun. Again, why do all bosses in fighting games have to carry freaking guns? Be fair and fight like a man. Anyway, he's actually simple enough because, by the looks of it, he doesn't have much in the intelligence department, and he won't fire at you as much as he could. Just keep kicking him and you'll be fine. After you defeat him, you finally fight Jimmy. I found him to be easier than Willie, mainly because of the lack of a weapon. He has most of the same moves that you do, but isn't nearly as aggressive. Just be patient, use kicks, be mindful of the timer, and he'll be down before you know it. After he's defeated, you'll view a heartwarming scene of a reunion between Billy and Marion, and they'll make out and you find yourself back in the menu screen. So much for a climactic ending. There are a few bugs with the game too. Most common is what I used to call the wall elevator. In the first stage, before you enter the warehouse, you can climb up the right wall just by walking over to it and moving up or down. Attack it all, and you'll fall off. Also, for the second boss fight, you can skip it entirely. Once the boss comes on the screen, just climb back down a few stories and the end stage theme will play. There's a lot of other bugs in the game, such as a way to get maximum skill levels in the second stage by fighting an invisible enemy, but I never really bothered to learn how to do it. I just know it's there. Finally, the graphics. They're pretty nice looking. There's some good detail to all the characters and the stages, especially in the 1 vs 1 mode. However, they all do move a little awkwardly. The screen often glitches a lot too, which I've noticed happens in quite a few of the older games. One of my favorite effects is when you throw people in the water. It makes a cool looking splash. One effect I didn't understand though is the odd flashing in the caverns. What's causing the walls to flash like this? That's the whole point of it. So is the game easy? Not really. Even after playing it constantly as a kid, I still find some difficulty in it, especially in the final stage with those damn bricks. You gotta hope to save all your lives for the final fights, because if you die, you start at the beginning of the scene, meaning that you have to fight all the cronies again. It's a short game though, it can be completed in about a half hour or so. Double Dragon is still one of my favorite beat 'em up games. I actually enjoyed 3 quite a bit too, but I've never owned 2 and only played it once or twice. Eventually, I'll probably review both of these, but that's for another time. But to start off the series, play this one. It's a good game. Sure, I was bitching about the platforming, but in reality, it's not so bad once you get used to the necessary timing. Final score? 9 out of 10. This is Reaper.